teachers, what was the worst thing a substitute teacher did while you were gone? I'm a little late to the party, but here it goes. I had a grade 1 half class last year, and one student had diabetes. Let's call him Adam. So Adam had a cell phone that beeps when his blood sugar is too low/high. It's connected to the monitor in his arm/hip. The cell phone has no other uses. No apps. No data. Not connected to the school Wi-Fi. The substitute saw his phone on his desk and promptly took it away as per the no devices rule. During gym class an EA comes in to make sure everything is okay, and Adam is visibly ill. Pale/sweating the whole works. Luckily the CA knows Adam's medical plan, instantly asks the Adam for the phone, and he explains that the substitute took it away in the morning. The EA then loses it on the substitute demanding the phone. The substitute calls in the principal to reprimand the EA, then get reprimanded herself as obviously she did not read the student's safety plans. She was asked to leave, and the principal taught the class the rest of the day. Adam was fine. Drank a couple juice boxes, and had a granola bar. Mom picked him up shortly after. That teacher was a bitch. Good to hear that Adam was okay though. As soon as a type 1 diabetic gets candy in their system they should be good. I'm type 1, and it's a daily. Scary part is that Adam was so obedient he didn't sass the sub. When politeness will kill you. Back when I was a teacher, I had a sub decide my plans weren't good enough for her and went rogue. She decided to show my students videos of animals giving birth on YouTube. I taught English. WAT. Exactly what I said when I came back and heard about what happened. Student here. TLDR. Sub demanded I turn over my heart monitor in front of the class. Junior year I was having major heart problems and had to wear a heart monitor 15 hours a day. It had a phone attached that when I had heart murmurs, it would send the data to my doctor. I was wearing it and started having heart issues. It buzzed and I went to click send when the sub demanded I turn over my cell phone. I started to explain why I couldn't, and she snapped at me. So I lifted my shirt to show the wires and sensors strapped to my chest in front of the class of 50 students. Choir class. I've never seen anyone's face drop that fast in my life. Oof. Though I was expecting the sub to dig in and demand the devices from you anyways. Glad that didn't happen. It didn't. Right. Edit. Word. I've had so many bad subs. One sub made an elementary student cry insisting her own name was misspelled and made her stand up in front of the class and admit her name was spelled wrong. I asked that she not return, but I still saw her around as other teachers had her sub. Another one worth mentioning was supposed to be my sub for the last 2 weeks of school because I went on maternity leave. This time teaching at a 7th 12th grade school. Ignored all my sub plans. Played on his cell phone the whole time. And then like 3 days, got upset at the students and told them off. And then they watched as he walked out to the parking lot and drove away. Thank goodness some kids went and told the office. When I came back it was like my room had been ransacked. It was awful. My name is spelt unusually, Polish spelling. Really not even that weird. Just a K not a C. And you would not believe the amount of times I've been corrected. Had one teaching aide in primary school who insisted on calling me the French version of my name too. Despite me repeatedly saying it wasn't my name. Just gave up in the end. Her version was K instead of K. Just bloody weird. I know my name. Rearranged my room. Not in a move student A away from student B and put her by student C way. In a move the giant rug over to the opposite corner of the room. And completely change the layout of student desks. And rearrange a bookshelf way. Okay. This is the weirdest one. Like. The other ones are explainable as the subs being assholes. But this? Just. Why? I've had teachers temporarily rearrange rooms for activities. It never seemed a big deal to me. But I've also never been in a classroom with a rug. The first year I taught 5th grade. I really wanted to do something special for my students before Christmas vacation. I spoke with my team and we came up with the idea to make every student a personalized Christmas ornament. We were going to surprise them by displaying the ornaments on a Christmas tree the day before vacation and they would be able to take them home. I was gone for a department thing the day before we were going to set up the tree, and one of the least liked subs was scheduled for my class. Since I had stored all the ornaments in my closet, I simply asked if the students needed any supplies. Make sure to get them yourself and not let them see the surprise. The thing about this sub, and the reason she wasn't liked, was that her first line of defense was always threaten to take away something from for misbehaving, recess, free time, lunch, etc. I think you know where I'm going with this. Fast forward to the end of the day. I get back to my classroom in the last 30 minutes of class so I could dismiss them when all of a sudden, I met with 25 kids asking about their ornaments. I tried to play dumb and asked them what they were talking about, and of course they informed me the sub said something. She told the students about the ornaments and said if they misbehaved, she would tell me and I would take away their ornaments. Instantly, I was filled with horror that the surprise was ruined for all 5th grade, their kids. They told the whole grade during recess. Anger because that damn sub ruined the surprise. Sad disappointment because I really wanted to see their faces when they walked through the door the next day and saw a special Christmas tree with their personalized ornament. It's not the biggest deal or anything, but I was really upset that weekend. To this day, when I talk to my old partners, I still refer to her as the Grinch. I would be upset too! Exclamation mark. I'm sure making all the ornaments took a long time. And it absolutely wasn't right for her to ruin the surprise. It wasn't even her surprise. How rude. Can we also take a moment to appreciate her throwing up under the bus like that? Super unprofessional. Went to sleep for 5 hours. My class was freaking amazing, sweetest, most thoughtful group I've ever had. When I got back the next day, I asked how the sub was. Me, how was the sub? Them, he was fine. He kinda took a nap for a while. Me, what? Exclamation mark. What did you guys do? Them, worked quietly so that we wouldn't wake him up. Eventually we ran out of work, so we just had silent reading. Me, for how long? Them, from when we started working until it was time to go outside. Me, that's a really long time. Look, I'm glad that you guys were so thoughtful, but if something like that ever happens again, please wake the sub up. It's not safe for the sub to sleep. He needed to be awake in case something happened. Them, we would have woken him up if we really needed to, but we also figured he probably really needed the sleep. Seriously, the sweetest class ever. Bruh, what grade was this? Those are some super nice kids. To be fair, if a sub fell asleep in class, my classmates would have done anything not to duck it up. Free pass to sleep or play on our phones, or whatever. Hell yeah. Might have done some work if it was passed out. I had a cool Chinese lucky cat that went missing after I had a sub. My students said the sub seemed really intrigued by it, talked about it several times, and even moved it from the shelf where it sat and brought it over to my desk. It was gone when I returned the next day. That's a new level of petty. Seriously. Did no one teach that sub some boundaries? Question mark. Maybe they had a sub that day. Left my perfectly prepped and neat desk an absolute disaster. Did not follow the lesson plan and took my gel pens. No, not the gel pens. Seriously. Sounds like a case for justifiable homicide to me. Not a teacher, but I vividly remember one incident of having a substitute in kindergarten. I had an infected cut on my toe and had been prescribed an antibiotic. That morning was the first time I took it. We were sitting on the floor for roll call, and I remember this burning pain in my abdomen. And she told us to get up and go to our desks. I tried to get up, only to realize I couldn't move, and just laid back. This sub was a total cow, and I remember she was always really mean. Anyway, she starts yelling at me for being attention seeking, and basically tries to pull me up. I'm in so much pain I start screaming, and one of the teachers from the classroom next to us comes, realizes I'm not faking it, and calls an ambulance. Long story short, I'm horribly allergic to penicillin and my kidneys were failing. I was in hospital for almost a week before I got discharged. Needless to say, that absolute bitch was not allowed back at the school. But I will never forget that day. I'm also allergic to penicillin, and know quite a few others who are as well. It's always surprised me how easily it gets prescribed, but the allergy is almost never tested for. I don't know anyone who didn't learn about their allergy the hard way. Can confirm. It sucks finding out you're allergic to penicillin. Apparently my mom is too, but neither of my brothers are. I had strep throat and/or mono. All the tests came back negative, and a fever of like 103. I was 19. In the dorms in college. During exam week. I wanted to scratch my goddamned liver out. Now I get amoxicillin if I need an antibiotic, which me and my mom are not allergic to. There was a harpsichord in the front of the classroom used both for demonstration and performance. Not knowing what he was doing, the sub tried to tune 3 notes that had gone mildly out of tune while I was away. He managed to break the strings on all 3 notes and left a message inside reading, "Sorry about that." Apostrophe. There was a secret harpsichord at my university. Not to everyone obviously, but most of the music majors didn't know it existed. I was teaching myself piano at the time and played the wheels off that bad boy after discovering it. If I could have strapped it to my car, I would have taken it home after spring semester. Now, I've heard there was a secret harpsichord that lonely scene test played, and it pleased the Lord. But you don't really care for music, do you? Not a teacher, but in 9th grade my algebra I teacher had her baby early in the year, so she was gone till the last month or 2 months of the school year. The sub was a former teacher, so you'd think she'd be a great sub. Nope. She hyper focused on 3 to 4 out of the 28 students in the class and just teach them, while completely ignoring the rest of us. She'd pass out a worksheet then go to her students, and never acknowledge us again till she dismissed us. Never checked homework, never acknowledged us. If anyone outside of her favorite students raised their hand or spoke up they were ignored, etc. Which went about as well as you expected with a bunch of 14 to 15-year-olds. That class was just wild. The kids who actually stayed in the classroom anyway. It was a mess. I'm actually surprised we weren't reported or visited by the teachers on either side of us for how loud we were. After several months with this lady, the vice principal was walking around randomly checking classrooms and walked into our shit show algebra I class. He lost it, yelled at all of us to sit down and shut up, which she also didn't acknowledge. Demanded she leave and sat with us the rest of the period. Never saw her again, and had maybe 6 to 7 different subs after her. 2 weeks after this our regular teacher came back. When she realized we had learned nothing, and learned the extent of how useless this lady had been, she started tearing up. I passed the classroom on the way to the bathroom during the next period and saw her sobbing at her desk. A friend of my mom's worked at the central office where they signed or organized the substitute teachers. That lady was permanently taken off the substitute list. Fucking hate teachers like that. Serves her right. I felt so bad for my algebra I teacher. She basically had to teach all of us a year's worth of math in less than 2 months, while also dealing with a class full of kids, and who were used to doing whatever they wanted. Ironically, the 3 to 4 the sub focused on ended up scoring the lowest on the end of year test. Just to add to this, I was friends with one of the students she focused on. He said she was a horrible teacher and made no sense whatsoever. Said he'd rather she just have ignored him too, and couldn't for the life of him figure out why she liked him and the others so much. Not a teacher, but I know this was a disaster for my teacher. We had been studying Romeo and Juliet and West Side Story, and our teacher had created a very comprehensive exam where we would be asked to compare and contrast characters, situations, and themes of the two as answers to some very specific questions. He had spent countless hours ensuring that it was fair and complete. We were going to have the exam the following Monday, and he was taking Friday off. So he told us that in addition to the weekend, we should also use Friday's class to prepare for the exam. His instructions to the substitute were likely something like, tell them to prepare for the exam. They already know what to do. Apostrophe. She marched in and shouted, prepare for an exam, and proceeded to hand it out. Of course, we protested. But what substitute hasn't heard? We are not supposed to get the exam today from a class at one time or another. When Monday came, the teacher was devastated. He could not count the scores. He wouldn't even attempt to grade it. He did not feel right giving the exam now that we had seen it. All the work he put into it and all the insight he suspected he might gain from scoring it were lost. Instead, we spent the day reviewing what we could have, should have, would have answered. As you can tell, I could really feel his pain. This makes me really sad for your teacher. He sounds like one of the good ones. I had a sub give out my cell phone number to my high school students so they could call me and give me excuses as to why they weren't taking their test while I was gone. I was livid. I complained to the sub office, and that teacher never subbed for my building again. And that is a story about why you changed your phone number. A few of the periods I taught were co-teach classes where a percentage of the students in the class have special needs, but can work well enough in a general population classroom with assistance from a special education co-instructor. These classes were often very rewarding to teach. But one downside of teaching that population from a logistical standpoint is that I was often required to attend ARD meetings. Basically every special education student has a meeting about twice a year, sometimes more frequently depending on need, where administrators, teachers, counselors, parents/guardians, and the student themselves all get together to go over their status and review the various educational accommodations the student is receiving to determine what may or may not need to change to best suit their needs. I didn't have a problem with attending these meetings per se. But because they only take one period, and several teachers are rotating through various meetings over the course of a day, the school had devoted ARD subs who were more akin to babysitters, at best, than substitute educators. That means that during that one period, hell can randomly break loose. One year I had a tough student who had some serious attitude problems, but was a good person underneath it all, and with whom I'd done a lot of work with to improve her engagement and interest in my class. About halfway through the year, I got called for an ARD meeting during the period I had said student. In my absence of 45 minutes, the sub decided to pick a petty argument with my kid, who was rightfully offended, but unwisely overreacted, and escalated things to making threats and nearly coming to blows with the sub to where she ended up within school suspension for a while. Getting the story from all parties and witnesses involved later, it's pretty clear the sub was to blame, and the kid who had worked so hard with was back at square one. I eventually got her back on track, and she ended up with one of the highest grades in my class at the end of the year. But I could only imagine how much better she could been without the setback and the amount of trust in adults she'd lost. Please click subscribe if you enjoyed this video.